Hello and welcome to Hysteria. I'm Erin Ryan.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco.
Alyssa, this week I saw a very confusing headline from Vogue, and to be fair, most Vogue headlines are deeply confusing to me, but it was about Barbiecore. Have you heard about Barbiecore?
What is that?
It's where you dress up in clothing that reminds you of Barbie.
Wait, Erin, is this where I show you my nails?
Those are Barbiecore.
I know! I wanted something peppy going into the whole Kansas situation.
Oh my gosh, and your gamble paid off.
I'm telling you. But yes, I mean, I couldn't imagine going further than these pink sparkly nails in terms of Barbiecore. I mean,
you did your part to preserve reproductive justice for Kansans. So good job. Good job. All right. So Alyssa, usually when we start news, we're like, let's start on a high note and then let's get into the shit. But this week's high note is a legit high note. Let's listen to some sound. That was the sound of Kansans celebrating the fact that they roundly rejected a possible amendment to their state constitution that would have enabled an abortion ban to take effect. So let's talk about that first. So I think, just kind of surveying the year, if the first half of 2022 was like fuck around season, the second half is find out season. Well, Republicans in Kansas certainly found out last night the constitutional amendment that would have specified that Kansans don't have the right to an abortion not only failed, but to use a political science term, it was curb stomped, basically.
Curb stomped? I was going to say whooped.
It was I went the American History X route with that. It was extremely roundly defeated.
Extremely satisfying.
It was very satisfying, and, all over political media today on Wednesday, when we're recording this, people are talking about what a earthquake, I saw the word earthquake in reference to it, how this can completely change the midterms. Alyssa, I wonder what your thoughts are on the defeat of the constitutional amendment in Kansas.
I mean, the defeat itself is just incredible. It's even more incredible because it's Kansas, right? Trump won Kansas by 15 points in 2020. But also, it's such a good sign for us. Like, I think that you and I are people who never want to, signal to complacency. No. But the Kansas, one of the best things I saw from Cook Political, I think it was, is that 300,000 people cast early votes. 58% of those who cast the votes were women, identified as women. And they said that is unprecedented that so many women voted early. And like the other thing is 2022, not a presidential year. Turnout in Kansas was over 900,000, which is huge. Almost presidential year levels.
Huge.
And in 2018, a non-presidential year, the turnout was 470,000. It almost doubled, or did double, which is great because it shows that Democrats are motivated. They are going to turn out to vote, we hope, other places. And also, Erin, it seems like some Trumpers voted against this amendment.
Well, look, Alyssa, they have a right to privacy. What they do in the privacy of the voting booth is between them and their God, who is smiling on them today for not being dickheads for once. Another really interesting thing that I saw was from the CEO of Target Smart. And he was tweeting on Tuesday about how when the Dobbs decision came down, when I talk about fuck around, that was an extreme fuck around moment. Right. Because right after the Dobbs decision came down, research has shown that the number of women in Kansas who registered to vote just went through the roof. It was like an unprecedented spike in registrations from women in Kansas. And I believe that the measure ended up losing by 20 points. So
just about
20 points, which is huge because, like, as you mentioned, Trump won that state by a pretty large margin. And I think it's been since the 1950s or 1960s since Kansas went blue in a presidential election. So it's huge. It's huge. And something that I was thinking about moving forward, I don't want to be like a bloodless like political strategist here because
that's not our vibe.
That's not our vibe. There's a time and place for political strategy, but also I don't know. This is people's lives. This is people's bodies, people's lives. But I think that this should send a message to other Democrats who are equally devoted to maintaining choice and reproductive justice for women and anybody who needs reproductive health care in the U.S. Run as though a vote for a Republican is a vote for an abortion ban.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Like, there is no separating a Republican candidate from the Republican Party platform. There are very few pro-choice Republicans left. I think Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are like the only two on the federal level. No, there might be some at the state level, but there is no voting for Republicans unless you understand that you are also voting for an abortion ban wherever you live. Yep. And I think that the more Democrats can run on that, the angrier and more at the front of mind the Dobbs decision can be, the more of a find out election 2022 will be.
It's the most election it feels really cause and effect, right?
Yes.
Very starkly cause and effect.
Yeah, and not that Samuel Alito should get punched in the face, but he does have a very punchable face. And it is nice to envision that maybe today he's having some thoughts.
Some angst, you think?
He might be. If I were a Republican, if I were somebody who believed after Dobbs went down that we were marching in a way that could not be turned around toward a nation of abortion bans, I would be feeling pretty bad today. Mm-hmm. And good. There are bad people who
feel bad.
Feel bad. Please feel bad. And to everybody who was organizing in Kansas, everybody who registered to vote for the first time, everybody who convinced somebody that it was time to vote and care about this.
And Erin, let's also, I think this primary was brought to our attention by a listener months ago. And so we have been tracking it, but like shout out to the listeners for bringing the good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really important reminder that just because a state is a historically red state or just because a state typically votes a certain way, that doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of who lives there because of gerrymandering, because of people who are just, I guess, discouraged by the way that government runs in their state, by people who are being silenced. I think that this is a really important reminder that there are enough of us out there if we just show up and vote, especially in places like local and state elections where an individual vote carries so much weight, we can really unfuck this. It'll take a while.
And also, to the point before about complacency, it also just goes to show the last couple of months that even if you live in a historically blue state, one bad election, one election of being like, it's fine, we're in a blue state. No, there's none of that. There is none of that. Everything hinges on every election. And therefore, we must always be at the ready.
Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to add two more little factoids to this. There was a heat advisory in Kansas yesterday. People still showed up to vote in record numbers despite the heat advisory. Another thing, in 2009, there was an abortion provider named Dr. George Tiller who was assassinated outside of his church by an anti-abortion extremist. And in this election, that church was actually used as a polling place.
Oh, Erin, you just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, which is like very narratively, it is a good narrative epilogue to a very, very awful tragedy. We also got some news from the Biden administration today.
We did.
Alyssa, can you take it away?
President Biden, today as we record, will sign an executive order aimed at making it easier for women seeking abortion to travel between states. How is this going to work? Well, one of the directives Biden will issue will allow states that have not outlawed abortion to apply for specific Medicaid waivers that would, in effect, help them treat women who have traveled from out of state. So that's one layer of the EO. The other one is that it will also call on healthcare providers to comply with federal non-discrimination laws and streamline the collection of key data, information on maternal health at the National Institutes of Health. So good. We're glad.
Yeah. But as I understand it, Alyssa, you have a bit of a bee in your bonnet about this EO. What
I mean, so here's the thing, Erin. Of course, I am so glad that they did this, but this one seems a little bit like it could have been done a few weeks ago. You know, I mean, like, I hate to be... I mean, I guess we can't, like, what's our, like, we just can't be fake, right? Like, I'm very happy about this, but this does not seem such a complicated EO, though. I mean, in defense of the Biden administration, these things always take a little bit of time because they want to make sure that they are, you know, they are girded and against being able to be taken to court. And if they were, that they would win. But, you know, just saying. I think that in general, a lot of humans in this country underestimate the panic and trauma that people affected by Dobbs have been feeling for the past 2 months. So glad it's here. Just wish it would have come a little bit sooner.
Yeah, I agree. I think that maybe what happened in Kansas, I mean, I know that they were working on this before the Kansas thing came down, obviously, because they don't just like, oh, we better do this overnight. But I think that, you know, what happened in Kansas should serve as a reminder to people who are maybe in Washington and insulated from what is actually happening on the ground and what people are actually worried about, that this is something that is like an existential issue.
Right. This isn't pandering to the left.
No.
Protecting abortion is not pandering to the left. This is healthcare.
No. Yes, indeed. This is healthcare. Can you tell us a little bit about what was introduced in the Senate a couple days ago?
Woke up this morning to a little press release in my inbox. The Reproductive Freedom for All Act was introduced by Senators Murkowski, Collins, Kaine, and Sinema. In the Senate, and here is what it says. The Reproductive Freedom for All Act prohibits state regulations that impose an undue burden on a woman's access to pre-viability abortions, while allowing states to enact reasonable restrictions on post-viability abortions, provided that states cannot ban abortions that are necessary to protect the life or health of the mother. It also seeks to protect access to contraceptives, which I appreciate, and preserve conscience protections. So, it's good. I mean, will it pass? Dunno. But appreciate that, you know, I feel like the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future are really haunting old Susan Collins right now.
I mean, she's sort of like trying, you know.
Yeah.
Do you remember the cartoon Daria?
Of course.
Do you remember in the opening credits sequence, Daria was playing volleyball and a ball goes right past her, and then she kind of half-assed puts her hand out.
Yeah.
Like, that's Susan Collins with abortion rights. But I do appreciate this being kept on the forefront because honestly, the more that voters are reminded that a vote for a Republican is a vote for an abortion ban, the better we will likely fare in the 2022 midterms. And if we fare well in the 2022 midterms, we won't have to care about Kyrsten Sinema anymore.
No,
like, if we do well enough, like, right? Wouldn't that be amazing?
We might actually be able to think about other things, generally.
What would you do with your cinema real estate in your brain? Like, how would you reallocate that?
Something fun. I don't know. Maybe I'd go for another walk. Maybe I'd listen to an extra audiobook. I don't know. Sky's the limit, Erin. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, I haven't even considered what I would do with the mansion cinema compound that exists in the irritation centers of my brain. But you know what? We'll brainstorm. We'll come up with some new ideas.
We'll brainstorm. We're not going to get cocky. Okay,
no,
we're not going to get cocky.
We're not going to get, but you buy a lottery ticket, you're like, where would I buy a fancy house? You know, you think about
Obviously.
Yeah. So, just, this is some lottery ticket music.
Okay, it's our lottery ticket musings.
Okay. So, we're through the good news. Oh, I do want to point out also that Arizona had Arizona basically I'm sorry, this is like a little bit, Arizona nominated what essentially amounts to a series of unhinged Facebook posts to all of their important offices.
Yes.
You know what? It is a beautiful state with a incredible desert landscape, and it's got a lot of like beautiful biodiversity, but it'll be totally uninhabitable by human beings within the next 15 years due to climate change. But this kind of feeds my dad's theory, which is that if you are not built for the heat, if you are a person who is just not cut out for the heat, and you try to live somewhere that is very hot, you'll go crazy. And I feel like Arizona is the Republican push to the right is driven by what we would call snowbirds, which is like people who should not be living in Arizona, who have moved to Arizona because they can't deal with winter, and then are now just like stinking the joint up. But yeah, that it's wild down there. It is.
Facebook posts come to life is pretty much the best description, Erin.
Yeah, everybody they nominated is just like a
bonkers. It's just bonkers.
Absolutely bonkers. Good thing they have like some solid candidates that are not Republicans that
thank
hopefully will win. We gotta hope Arizona has its act together for the general election. Okay, speaking of states, let's resume our tour de fuckery. About a month ago, we did an episode where we talked about things that were going on in different states, and we asked you listeners to submit if there was anything that was like bonkers, to use an Alyssa word, going on in your respective state, and we got a lot of really good submissions. If you're listening and you have something going on in your state that we haven't mentioned and you want us to mention it, you can email us, hysteria@crooked.com. We'll do these episodes from time to time just because it's good to remind people that the state level is where it's at. And the state level is often where things get overlooked in favor of the national circus. So let's start with Texas. Alyssa, what's going on in Texas? When is Texas not fucking around?
Texas, oh God. I mean, this one though, so the funny thing is when we get these tours to fuckery submissions, sometimes they're literally so fuckery that you have to like read it multiple times to be like, am I understanding this? Texas, one of those.
Right.
So, John Mitchell, the man responsible, one of the architects of SB 8, which we have been talking about for a long time, the canary in the coal mine of all these bad state-level abortion bans. Well, Erin, he says that medications that prevent HIV transmission also encourage and facilitate homosexual behavior. So drugs like Descovy and Truvada. And he thinks because of that, they should be banned.
What?
And they should not be covered by insurance.
Oh my goodness. What?
In a nutshell. That's his cause d'etre right now.
But like, you can get HIV from any sexual behavior. Like, the drugs can't tell the difference between...
He says that the existence of these, Erin, encourages homosexuality.
That's like saying umbrellas encourage rain. They don't.
I know.
And rain isn't bad. Like,
this is the man who decided that civilians should be bounty hunters and vigilantes and just track cab drivers that take women to get abortions. So
I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. That's also, it's like saying the availability of ibuprofen encourages you to go out and have a good time. It doesn't.
You know what, Erin? I bet if he heard you, he'd be like, exactly, Erin.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I've already said too much. Moving on to Minnesota. Minnesota, a state where people assume because people are nice that fuckery is not occurring. Oh, my goodness. State-level fuckery in Minnesota abounds and has abounded. It's just, it's just like any other state. There's a video of the running mate of Scott Jensen, who is the Republican nominee for governor in Minnesota. And he was making some questionable comments about women and abortion, and he promised that they will ban abortion in Minnesota with no exceptions for rape or incest. And he said these wild things at the National Right to Life conference in June, on the day that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. He compared safe and legal abortion to slavery.
Oops.
Burke also said women used to not be able to vote. Now we let them drive.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank
dude,
you so much, MBS.
Conservatives are not funny. Like,
no, but Erin, they're always trying to do stand-up. That is like Matt Gaetz' dream. It's like everything he's doing is like an audition for the Comedy Cellar. And it's like, dude, you all have to stop. You're not funny.
Nobody, like, first of all, like, it is, yes, none of them are funny. None of them can write a joke to save their life. And this is a joke that maybe would have been sort of funny if Joan Rivers said it in the 1960s, right? In the right context, but like it's so hacky. It is. They're the cheesiest motherfuckers on earth, and they're also total hacks who are not funny but desperately want to be funny. It's the same with Ted Cruz.
Oh, another one. Him and his podcast. He's just one-liners. He's just trying so hard. You know what they're all trying to do, Erin? They're trying to make fetch happen. That's what they're all trying to do.
They all want to be Jon Stewart so badly, and they're such smarmy little turds. And it's just, it would be kind of pitiful to watch them try, but these people actually have real power. Matt Burke could become the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, and you know, I'm sure if people asked him about this now, he would try to walk it back and say like, oh, of course we're not going to do bans. Of course we would make exceptions. Listen, anybody listening who has, you know, like a mother, sister, friend, aunt, whatever, who doesn't believe that Republicans, no matter where they are, once they get power, will try to ban abortion. Yes, they will.
Yes, they will.
If they're telling you they won't, they will. They lie about this shit all the time. Some of them lie about it during their Supreme Court confirmation hearings. There's just literally no recourse. We need to make the recourse happen by not electing these people, or if they currently hold office, getting them to lose their fucking jobs. Like,
yes,
they will ban abortion, and if they say they're not, they're lying, because they lie all the time. Minnesota is one of 2 states that lack a statute that terminates parental rights for alleged rapists. So, if Jensen and Burke were to be elected and passed an abortion ban without exceptions for rape, Minnesotans who survive sexual assault would not only be stripped of their right to choose, but would have to share custody with their predator.
It's fucked up.
Yeah, Minnesota, please. Love ya. Land of 10,000 lakes. You gotta throw Burke into all 10,000 of those lakes, please. He truly deserves it. On to Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, real quick. Massachusetts government put their Department of Utilities in charge of planning a transition to clean energy. Sounds good, right? No, because the department put gas companies in charge. So not much of a difference will be made, therefore ultimately not helping the climate crisis. One glimmer of hope is Attorney General Maura Healey. She is wonderful. She has come out and she's spoken out about this. Lots of people in Massachusetts have not yet spoken out about this. So maybe when they hear this, they'll be like, wait, we didn't know this was happening. This is fucked up. Massachusetts. It's a weird move.
Weird move. Missouri is having a wild one. Congratulations to Eric.
All of them.
All of
so
the
many of them.
In an example of Donald Trump being accidentally or perhaps on purpose legitimately funny, he endorsed all caps Eric for the Senate primary. That
was actually funny.
There were 3 guys named Eric running, and when someone asked him to clarify, he was like, basically like, I said what I said. But one of the Erics did win. It wasn't the crazy Eric Greitens, who
thank
is
God,
literal sex
lunatic.
like a sex creep.
He's like an predator,
an actual sex criminal and a gun creep.
Yes.
Also, weirdly, those 2 things often go hand in hand. It's so strange. I feel like somebody should look into that. People who are violent toward women, and also just like violent and dangerous people in general. But whatever, he's out of the primary. the more moderate Eric winning the nomination for the Republican the Senate candidate is maybe good news, kind of, but
I mean, it's better.
But it also means that the Senate seat is likely to remain Republican.
Right.
But, also I think that I would be very careful with prognostications now on the heels of what happened in Kansas. You can't necessarily extrapolate nationwide based off of what happens in one state, but we can say that, female voters who care about reproductive justice are very fired up, and I would not place any bets in the R column. Let's see, what else do we have?
We have a shout out to 2 great women running in Nebraska.
Oh, nice.
Patty Pansing Brooks is a Democrat running to represent Nebraska's 1st congressional district. And even though that district went to Trump by 15 points in 2020, in the special election in which Brooks went up against her November opponent, she narrowed the gap to 6 points. When they face off again in November, they think the higher turnout and more ad campaigns will give her a great shot. Also some exposure, which is what we're doing right here. And then also, governor's race in Nebraska. Democrat Carol Blood has the best chance a Democrat has had in decades to win a statewide election. She's known in rural areas and has won her last few elections in red districts. So that's good. So
nice.
We should it's like we said earlier, can't count out the red states. Good things are happening in red states.
Mm-hmm. And the people who are doing the work on the ground in red states are tough as nails. And gosh, I think if I met a listener out in the wild who was from Nebraska and they were to come up to me, I would purchase them the nearest available beverage.
I agree with you. That's a rule. We pinky swear.
We pinky swear that if you're from a red state and you see Alyssa or me in the wild and I'm not like in a hurry carrying, a baby in 16 bags or whatever, I'll buy you a coffee or a glass of wine. We'll do it.
Yeah, same.